Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Cuthbert, CEO of SAFEpedia, and with me today is a very special guest, Corey Pitzer, CEO of SAFEmap. And we're getting together today to talk about what Corey and SAFEmap are up to for 2022.
Scott, an exciting year ahead of us. You know, there's a lot of people interested in what is called a new view in safety or safety differently. My personal term that I prefer for this is DeepSafe. And we've been working a lot in this field for 25 years now. That I think for the first time I started looking at safety differently was actually in 1986 when I was promoted to the role of group safety manager for a company in South Africa called Billiton, right after there was a disaster, a massive disaster, 172 people killed in it. And I was then tasked to implement something that needs to focus on this reaction in this organization. And I introduced a program that we called at first safety review. The company was then called GenCore. So we called the GenCore Safety Review. And this was like an elimination of fatalities. And this company had 60 mines in it. So we ran through with some teams for 2 years. Every mine did this elimination of fatalities. And then that was followed after 2 years with the CEO asking, so what now? What do we do next? Because the safety was improving, etc. So I developed a concept called GenCore Safety Performance Review. So this is like shifting safety to the human side, safety perceptions, culture. And what we then did was basically introducing to each of those mine site managements a week-long process which they had to participate in, giving them skills in human and organizational performance management, which is today known as HOP. So we did this in 1986 to 1992. And so I've been working in this field for many years. And so SAFEmap, I started SAFEmap after that, and then started getting into, well, it's easy to talk about things. There's a lot of theories that go around. And as I was working in this field, we started developing tools and techniques and methods, because no system, no philosophy can actually convert into practical effect if it hasn't got tools, simple tools. And so that's what I was doing. And then as I was working in SAFEmap and building SAFEmap up, along came, books from Eric Holnagel, Sidney Dekker, and I met Sidney Dekker at some point, and we did some work together, and Todd Conklin, we did some work together in Australia. But, as I said, there is talking and writing, and the knowledge about the concept, the new view of safety, is critically important. But if we don't have tools to make it happen, it goes nowhere. So this year, we want to introduce all these tools and techniques that we have developed to a broader audience. And what I decided to do was to do this alongside the 14 principles of Deming. Now you may ask, why the 14 principles of Deming? Because I believe that the 14 principles of Deming really spelled out the new view in safety. He just did it on quality in the previous century. But if you look at those principles, each and every one of them is actually a terminology or a principle that applies right now in safety. So that's why I'm saying safety is like 30, 40 years behind the time, right. If you think about it, because Deming's principles applied many, many years ago. So this year, I want to have a series of webinars, one each on each of those principles, and then want to invite a guest into it, and we're going to then ask these guests from people from around the world to contribute to how do we do this in practice.
Right.
So that's actually a long answer, to your quick
No,
question.
made my job easy. So, because we were just talking about that before we came on, is just that there's no shortage of books, or video content out there about talking about these concepts, but there's seems to be a shortage of tools that people can use to implement, and I think it's important also to note. I mean, we've done a lot of work together in the past, whether it's webinars on SAFEpedia or keynote, presentation at Safety Connect. But this year we want to go kind of beyond that and have this series of 14 webinars with guests and some Q&A sessions where people can not just show up for a webinar, but kind of take that journey through the the new safety and the Deming's principles. So did we want to call them up and touch on them, or are we gonna?
Yeah, let's have a quick look at them, and if you want to share the screen, and we can quickly look at them, and they basically just as Deming described them. And so the first one that he described was create constancy of purpose. Now, if you look at that in terms of how does that translate into safety, that talks to the vision of safety. That talks to the fallacy of zero, for instance.
Right.
And it talks to why do we want safety in our business? Why do we want to be safe? And that may sound like a simple question, but if employees don't know that why, they don't buy into it. Right. And if all they know is you want to achieve zero accidents, which they don't believe is possible, where are you going with this? So that's for instance one. The second principle is adopt the new philosophy. And in this case, I talk about adopting the DeepSafe philosophy. Where does it come from? And how do you actually go about adopting this philosophy? And that's exactly what Deming did with the changes in the quality philosophy. So that'll be a second, and they're not necessarily going to come in this sequence, right. But we're going to run through them. Cease dependence on inspection to achieve safety. That's what he said. He said to achieve quality. But this is exactly where we are now with a new view, where we say we should stop adding barriers to the safety process, to the operational process. We should stop looking at catching safety at the back end of the production process, which is what Deming said. You build into the process. And the practice of awarding businesses on price alone. So, the whole issue of the cost of safety, what is the impact of it on morale, on the employee motivation in the organization. But most importantly, we tend to want to look at safety as contributing to the bottom line of the organization, and it does, if it's done correctly, etc. But that shouldn't be the why we do it, as an example. Number 5, improve constantly and forever every process for planning, production, and service. Now, this to me is one of the key reasons why quality became, under Deming's philosophy, such a successful transformation. Instead of catching, and it holds back to number 4, instead of trying to inspect quality in or safety in, the operational management of quality and the operational management of safety is equivalent. So we should have an operational processes that are effective and impactful and competent, and not try to do it at the back end.
Right.
And number 6, institute training on the job. We have lots of training in classrooms and in virtual realities and all kinds of fancy things. And Deming's principle is training needs to happen on the job. Now, if you say that, your supervisor, your management need to have a significant training role.
Right.
And that changes the whole thinking about how do we convey this philosophy, not in classrooms, as an example. Number 7, adopt and institute leadership. Now, if you have a look at the whole conversion of this thinking into the workplace, it happens through leadership. And it's no different to what Deming said. We have to train leaders, the operational leaders, in what is the difference between managing safety and leading safety.
Right.
What is leadership at the front end of the workplace, the worker? They are leaders. How do we equip them for that role? And I'll talk about a program that we developed for a company called Safe Sentry. And I'm so excited about that, but we won't let the cat out of the bag too quickly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's probably the #1 challenge that we hear when we're doing workshops and webinars and at Safety Connect is how do we get our organizations to support us, to see us as leaders, to see us as influencers, and kind of empower us to make some of these changes. So I think that's going to be definitely a hot topic, and I know people are going to be clamoring to hear about the program that you guys have at SAFEmap to help organizations with that very challenge. So.
Yeah. No, I look forward to that. The program that we developed there is for the last 20 years. We call it DeepSafe Leadership. It is really an exciting program that really changes the mindset of people, and it touches on many of the topics that goes into how do you like, for instance, number 8, Deming's principle, drive out fear. Now, we've heard a lot about just culture, psychological safety, and all these great terms, but in the hands of the supervisor that has to deal with worker behavior, that, do they have the tools? Do they have the skill sets to look at the situation in a balanced and fair way and create just culture there? Not just culture in the posters of the boardroom,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
The other one, number 9, is break down barriers between staff areas, and this is to do with the how do you get the safety message into the operational area by not having the safety professional becoming the policeman or the torch carrier of safety in the organization, but how does the chief operating officer, how does that person says safety is mine? The safety people in the organization, they're here to advise me, to support me, but it's mine. And I've seen some chief operating officers and CEOs taking that on, right. And it's remarkable what happens.
It is. I think it is changing. Absolutely. I think we've seen that as well. But it's still, safety's been very much a vertical, within an organization, and not integrated, throughout. So I know there'll be a lot of questions and a lot of interest on that topic as well. Yeah. Number 10 is eliminate slogans, exhortations, and targets for the workforce. Man, this is so much what we do in safety. We are driving slogans into every workplace. Think safety, expect the unexpected. It's almost as if we think that running with slogans is going to make the thing happen. Right. And it is absolutely also what Deming said. The setting of targets of employee performance, it is a monster in any organization, and it kills initiative. Right. Yeah. And it ties back into the training on the job too. It's in the lunchroom doesn't qualify. Yeah, and it also ties with the next one: eliminate numerical quotas for the workforce and numerical goals for management. This is a big one. Even though we say, don't do this, don't do that, we are still driving numbers in safety. Right. And we are still driving quotas of performance requirements. And as I said, it is really something that kills the true culture in the organization. I can't wait to get into that one with you. My background is more in the industrial construction side, and I know that on some of the large mega projects, most of the safety professionals' time was consumed by collecting and reporting safety statistics, and you know, they needed to do it to satisfy the organization and the shareholders. But they said, you know, I really wish I could get out there, you know, on the site and help keep people safe instead of just reporting on what happened last month. So,
Yeah.
can't wait to get into that one with you for sure.
Yeah, and also it also talks to the next one: remove barriers that rob people of pride and workmanship. And there's a lot of focus on this, you know, to give people autonomy, to support people to become masters of their own destiny in their own workplaces. But this whole process of, you know, pride in workmanship, you probably don't use the term workmanship these days, because this is Deming's principle. In those days it was okay, but it goes into what I called many years ago, started calling this risk competency.
Right.
Risk competency is the key to people doing their work, not technical only, but how do you make them competent to take risks, which they have to do in the workplace. And we're going to bring in one of the new partners in SAFEmap is Brett Reed. And he'll be one of our guests on that one. He developed some great work in this area, which he calls the CARES model. And I look forward to bringing him into that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just, again, I mean, I'm excited to talk, to get into all these topics with you, but we've had some really good conversations around that as well. And it's almost goes against, you know, the current philosophy in a lot of cases of safety of embracing risk, right? And being able to empower people to evaluate and manage and accept risk rather than avoid it at all costs. Because you know, I think people learn by making mistakes and recognizing how to improve upon their behaviors, not how to eliminate behaviors outright. So
this is a big topic. This was actually the title of the workshop that this must be 8 years ago now, that Todd Conklin, myself, and Sidney Dekker ran in Australia. It was called Safety at the Edge. Right. And it is with this in mind that, you know, safety have looked upon the concept of risk purely in threat terms. Right. A risk is now equal to a threat for us. But a risk is both sides of it. And I think the Chinese, the word for risk is both, threat and opportunity. Something like that just pops in my memory. But this is what risk is. Risk is an opportunity in the organization. So the closer we can operate to the edge of safety, right, the more we unleash the organization in terms of capability. And if your people are risk competent, you can actually drive closer to the edge, and you can be much more successful. And I always like to use the example of the hurdler. If you want to run faster and break the record as a hurdler, you shouldn't jump higher and higher, and that's what safety does. We tell people to jump high. The risk competent approach is jump as low as you possibly can. You should almost touch those barriers every time. That's how you're going to break the record. And that's a bit of a philosophy that some people are not comfortable with it, but we'll look into that for sure.
We're gonna have a lot of people in with their opinions and questions on that one for sure.
Yeah. And then number 13 and 14 is really about you have to bring this into the organization in a formal way. You have to equip people. You have to equip the right skills and levels of your safety professional to be able to deal with this newer thinking in safety. So that's what number 13 will be about. And then number 14 will be about how do you distribute accountability in the organization, what kind of operational and organizational design, and how do you impact on culture. And this is at more at the strategic level, but it is as important as any of the other principles that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of desire for safety professionals to learn how to think a little bit more strategically and impact the organization at a different level than just compliance.
Well, unfortunately, in most organizations, if you look at where does the safety professional sit in the organizational structure, they tend to sit in the mid-tier.
Right.
There's few organizations that have that individual at the highest level of the organization, and I believe that's where that individual should be, at the highest level, reporting to the CEO, but not as the torchbearer.
Right.
But as the internal expert that drives the philosophy, the strategies, the thinking behind it, because that belongs in the operational side.
Absolutely. Well, we're super excited to be hosting these sessions. Really, really excited to bring our audience these sessions that will build on the previous session. Like you said, we might mix up the order a little bit depending on the guest's availability. But it is going to be a very comprehensive series that we're going to put together. We'll definitely have some time for Q&As, and I know there'll be lots of follow-up and lots of discussion in between the sessions as well. So we hope to get everybody's wheels turning and really empower people to make these changes within their organizations and within themselves in 2022.
Sounds like fun, Scott.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Corey. We'll let you guys know when the first session is up and ready.
Excellent.